Congress introduces a new bill aimed at amending the Muhammad Ali Act. There you goes. I told you this was happening, and that's exactly what ended up happening. Now, for the people that don't know, this is not as bad as people think. Just because it's Dana White who's doing the changes, all of a sudden, people are under the impression this is worse than it actually is. And trust me, before I knew what they were changing exactly on the Muhammad Ali Act, I thought the same exact thing, that boxing is going to be just like the UFC. You best believe, though, that's what Turki's Sheikh Dana White and the president of the WWE wants to do with TKO. They want to make it the UFC of boxing. They want complete control. Can you really blame them? That's what everybody wanted in boxing. From Top Rank, Bob Arum, all the way to Al Haymon PBC. Everybody wanted to work on their side of the street. Bob Arum wanted to do in-house fights with Top Rank, and Al Haymon did so with PBC. That's what they did for years. All of a sudden, Bob Arum announced that they are going to be working hand-to-hand with PBC to make fights. They're going to do joint events in the future, and they already doing it now. So how the hell did the biggest promoters in boxing all of a sudden unite when before they were divided and didn't want to unite to work with each other to give the fans the fights that they want to see? The answer for that is simple, is the Turkey threat, TKO. But none of that can come to fruition without the Muhammad Ali Act changing, which that's what Dana White is here for. With his connections to Trump, apparently he's getting it done. Now, before I dive into the changes, the reason why Bob Arum is now willing to work with Al Haymon hand to hand, even though 5 to 10 years ago, he sued Al Haymon for like $100 million. Golden Boy, Oscar De La Hoya, he sued Al Haymon for $400 million. Now they want to work hand to hand? The answer is simple. Everyone is always making fun of Eddie Hearn blowing $1 billion that DAZN gave him in order to invest in DAZN, and he didn't make not even one superstar. I mean, at least with PBC, Al Haymon built Javante, and he's now trying to build Kermel Moten. On the other hand, people not talking about Top Rank, Bob Arum. ESPN gave Bob Arum $700 million, and Top Rank did not even build one superstar. ESPN was under the impression they was going to receive a Pacquiao versus Floyd or similar to that, a big pay-per-view fight eventually here and there. And all they ended up with is local fights from Top Rank. And that's why ESPN ended their long relationship with Top Rank. And now they are not willing to extend the contract with Top Rank, which is forcing Top Rank to do what he never wanted to do, which is work with his enemies, aka Al Haymon, PBC. Now they're doing a great job. They working hand to hand. In fact, the last Top Rank card on ESPN, which is this Saturday coming up, I'm pretty sure you're going to see a lot of PBC fighters on that card as well. Or perhaps that's not going to begin until Top Rank leaves ESPN. Well, while Top Rank is having trouble securing a network, PBC is also having trouble securing a lot of dates with Amazon Prime. And they're going to help each other out for sure, especially Top Rank, since they don't even have a network. PBC has a network. Now, the billion-dollar question at this point is, how the hell did we get here when the sport of boxing at some point was bigger than the NBA, the NFL, etc., etc.? Now, one of the biggest promoters in boxing, Top Rank, the company doesn't have a network? How does that make sense? Well, the answer is simple. When ESPN gives you $90 million a year to host fights on their network, and they not seeing the revenue, instead of getting mega fights and every now and then a super mega fight like at least a Ryan versus a Javante. But instead, they received local fights like the one we seen this Saturday night. That's when ESPN was like, oh, hell nah. We are getting finessed one-on-one. We getting played because they are not receiving 90 million worth of fights. Nor us, the fans. We didn't see 90 million worth of fights on ESPN every year. What? Somebody got played. Somebody got finessed. And that's why boxing ended up being here, is because they did not invest in the sport, but more so into their pockets. Therefore, Turki and Dana White, and with all of Turki money, he figured he couldn't go nowhere with the way boxing is structured. And they did what the fans see as the unforgettable, which is changing the Muhammad Ali Act. The billion-dollar question, what are they changing? One is the organizations in the sport, the corrupted organizations in the sport, I should say, from the WBC to the WBO to the IBF to the WBA. They want to get rid of that. Not necessarily rid of them completely, but more so, they want to get rid of the power these organizations have over the sport of boxing. Basically, if Turki created TKO last year, then he will be forced to rank his fighters according to the WBO, WBC, etc., etc. He can't have his own rankings under his own company. And that's a huge problem because it ain't like these organizations like the WBC, WBA, IBF, and WBO are not corrupt. In fact, it's the contrary. You see Canelo, he ducked his mandatory for years. Benavidez, over 3 years. And he never was forced to fight him. In fact, the IBF, for example, they were caught making a bribe back in the day. So clearly, the sport of boxing is so corrupted to the point where some individuals have control over the organizations, whether they giving money to their pockets, whatever they doing, they have some control over these organizations, and it's not organic. The rankings are not organic. It's not fair. Not everyone has to obey the rules. Some individuals can break the rules, like Canelo Alvarez, and even other fighters in his camp, like Oscar Valdez, when he tested positive for PEDs and the WBC still allowed him to fight. Well, TKO, Dana White, Turki, obviously they made changes to the Muhammad Ali Act by stating that companies like TKO or whatever company, it ain't just them, is anyone, they should have rights to their own rankings if they're gonna spend money, grow the company, and pay fighters to fight. Why do they have to obey to other companies that are corrupted? Not even companies, to other organizations that are corrupted, such as the WBC, WBO, IBF, and WBA. And that's why you guys heard Turki say that these organizations are corrupted. The rankings are not fair, which is more than fair to ask that you do not want to be forced to rank fighters in your own company by outside influence, outside organizations that are corrupted. Surely the Muhammad Ali Act is outdated in that department. Anyone with common sense would want control of their own rankings in their own company. Second of all, the second change is the money. How much the fighters needs to be paid. Well, TKO want control of that as well. They want to pay fighters what they are worth in their own eyes. And they want to have standard pay, like $20K for a debut. And then it goes up to, I believe, $100K, $500K, all the way to $700,000 for a world title fight. Meaning the standard pay for a world title, the TKO title, the undisputed title, is only going to be $700,000 versus what fighters are getting paid now, this is the main section the fighters going to have a problem with, and perhaps the fans. But for sure, we're going to see more of the best fighting the best, at least the best fighters on TKO. This doesn't mean you're not going to see managers in boxing anymore. I mean, there's managers in the UFC. So you can negotiate a purse, but it's not going to be like now. Whoever is fighting now, they lucky because they getting paid a lot of money. But in the future, the way TKO is moving, it's gonna be just like the UFC in terms of pay. However, in terms of delivering the best versus the best, that's obviously the plan. With that being said, go ahead and drop your thoughts in the comment section below on the 2 changes to the Muhammad Ali Act. Getting rid of the corrupted organizations, that's not a problem. But lowering the pay, that's a fighter problem. Subscribe below and to be continued on the next episode of Akhi, Akhi TV. Peace out. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.